Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting for our Parks, Recreation, and Community Services for June 20th, Monday afternoon. Roll call, please.
Commissioners Asatrian is absent. Fuad?
Here.
Kafayan?
Here.
Michaels?
Present.
President Wu?
Present.
The agenda for the June 20th, 2016 regular meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on or before Friday, June 17th, 2016. On item 2, we have upcoming council agenda items.
Yes, President Wu, members of the Commission. The City Council returns from their recess on July 12th, at which time we have 5 agenda items. The first is a motion to award a bid for the Wilson Mini Park restroom construction project. Then we have a motion to authorize the City Manager to execute a 4-year agreement with the County Department of Community and Senior Services, the amount of $902,000 for the Elderly Nutritional Meals Program. And we have a motion to approve a new 5-year lease and operating agreement with All for Health, Health for All to operate the Pacific Community Center Health Clinic. And then we have a commendation for the cruise night sponsors. Then we have a proclamation to proclaim July as Parks and Recreation Month. Then on July 26th, we have a resolution to approve the Verdugo Workforce Development Board's amended joint powers agreement and bylaws, and you will be receiving an overview and report on the Verdugo Workforce Development Board later on this agenda. And President Wu, that's all we have on schedule for now.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 3 is Commission staff comments.
No comments.
Nothing at this time.
Well, if that's the case, I would like to have the distinct honor of being able to recognize this very special person that sits on the dais with us. I've known him to be a very great mediator and be able to work with the people that he has working for, as well as the people that sit on the dais. And it gives me great pleasure to recognize Jess Duran, our director. After serving the city for almost 4 decades, he will be leaving us and moving on to greener pastures and spending time with his grandkids. I think that he leaves a great legacy behind. Just to highlight some of the things that I know that he has been able to bring to the city and being a part of, such as getting $47 million joint use Edison Pacific Community Center Park in 2004. That was in conjunction with the Unified School District, now as referred to as the Pacific Community Center. That has been a great addition to the community, and I think it's widely used by our community members, and everyone really enjoys the amenities that's offered through the PCC, and also the Adult Recreation Center, Pacific Park Pool, Maryland Avenue Park, Glendale Narrows River Park, Pacific Park Artificial Surf Soccer Field, which recently had our Glendale youth partake in the soccer tournament. And I think that those type of things is what Jess is going to leave behind, where he's able to have a positive impact on the community, especially our youth, giving them an outlet. So it just gives me a great pleasure to recognize Jess. He's been a consummate professional. He's always been there to get us the facts that we request, and he's always kind of been able to help us move things along. So I can't thank you enough on a personal level and a professional level, and I do hope you have a great retirement. Enjoy your time with your grandkids and your better half. Well deserved. And yeah, that's it. And I would like to see if I could present you with a special plaque that our commission would like to present you with. I'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, President Wu, members of the Commission. It has been a very long, self-fulfilling, extremely gratifying career with the City of Glendale. I feel very fortunate and blessed that I've been given several opportunities to grow and develop in this organization. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve the Commission, the community, the residents, volunteers, community organizations, foundation members, in Glendale and the nonprofits that partner with our department and several departments to provide the needed services and programs in this community. I'm inspired every day that I come to work by persons such as yourselves that demonstrate your caring and commitment and appreciation for this community, given the work that you do as a volunteer commissioner for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Department, as well as all of the committed employees, City of Glendale employees. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your continued leadership and support of our department. Neither of us could do this alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So I would just like to read what it says on the plaque for our viewing public. The Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission recognizes Jess Duran with gratitude for years of outstanding leadership and service to the Community Services and Parks Department and the City of Glendale, 1978 to 2016. Thank you, sir. Time flies when you're having fun, right, Jess?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Next item, please.
President Wu, members of the commission, if I may, under this same item, I would like to make an announcement or announce several upcoming events within our department. One, I wanted to start by announcing that the water play feature, which is very popular at Pacific Park and Cerritos Park, is now on. It turned on June 15th, will be available through September 16th daily from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m., and then from September 17th through October 16th, Saturday and Sundays only from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. On June 25th, we have a Wilderness Workday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Tugmajan Wilderness Park. Then on Wednesdays, starting June 29th through August 3rd, we have the Summer Concerts in the Park series at Verdugo Park from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. July 1st, 15th, and 29th, that's on alternating Fridays, we have Tea Night Out at Pacific Community Center from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. On July 1st is a teen photo contest submission deadline. For anyone who wants information as to what that entails, they can email jballotin@glendaleca.gov. July 2nd, Street Food Cinema. They're showing Rocky at Central Park from 5:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. For information, the public can go to www.streetfoodcinema.com. July 9th, we're offering Native Bees of Southern California at Tugmajan Wilderness Park, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. July 16th, we have a Riverwalk Workday at Glendale Narrows Riverwalk from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. July 16th is Cruise Night, also a very popular event. The time is not correct, and the information there is not correct. I apologize. But that's going to be at on Brand Boulevard from 5:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Again, that's on July 16th. On July 17th, we have Karate Kids being offered. That's an event at Brand Friendship Garden from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And back again here for another Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission meeting on July 18th at 2:30 p.m. And for more information, the public can call 818-548-2000 or visit www.glendaleca.gov/residents/calendar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to take a moment to recognize a distinguished guest in our audience. We have the former Commissioner, Ms. Dottie Sharkey, in her attendance, and it's always a pleasure to see her. So I just want to especially recognize you, Dottie. So thank you for attending.
My pleasure.
Thanks. Next item, please.
Next is item 4, oral communications. I don't have any cards. Item 5, consent items. At A is approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held on April 18th, 2016.
I will move it.
I'll second.
And that was Michael's. I'll take roll call. Commissioners Asatrin absent. Fuad?
Yes.
Kalfayan?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
President Wu.
Yes.
At item 6, we have reports for information only. At A, Adult Recreation Center, Facility Operations and Center-Based Programming Annual Report.
As President Wu, members of the Commission, while we don't have any action items, we have a number of informational reports, and we would like to spend some time on some PowerPoint presentations for senior services. We'd like to give you a presentation on an overview of our workforce development activities and the status of the Workforce Development Board. We would like to make a presentation on the closeout of the winter shelter program, which was a huge effort, and we'd like to make a presentation on the Glendale homeless count. And then we would like to have Ms. Kavarian make a presentation on senior services, and then Mr. Panosian to make his presentation on park services. And then I can briefly go over the status of our capital improvement projects. But other than that, what you have is informational reports. So we won't be making presentations on all of them, but of course, if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to bring them up. So with that, we'll go ahead and make a presentation on item 6B, Senior Services Program Annual Report.
President Wu, Commissioners and staff, I'm Maggie Kavarian with the Community Services and Parks Department overseeing the senior services programs. I'm going to present the annual report for 2015-2016. There are 3 components to our senior services program: supportive services, home-delivered meals, and congregate meals. Just a few items to go over for the year. 160 unduplicated seniors received case management services. Over 120 seniors requested information and referral per month. And our case managers provided seniors with over 8,000 bus tokens and 650 taxi vouchers annually. We served over 40,000 congregate meals and over 12,000 home-delivered meals this year, with over 2,000 telephone reassurance calls. We are proud of one particular item. City of Glendale is the only agency in all of LA County that offers seniors the opportunity to eat a hot meal 7 days a week, and that's at our Adult Recreation Center. So our supportive services program, here's one of our case managers assisting a senior in our community. We get referrals for supportive services from police department, fire department, Glendale Water and Power, as well as our management services department, along with community development, as well as adult protective services in our 3 local area hospitals, as well as out-of-state family, neighbors, and landlords. And this is really where all the referrals come from. So what exactly do we do? I mean, we're dealing with hoarding issues, cleaning services, we're dealing with hospice care, referrals for caregiver support, utility assistance, benefits enrollment, and much, much more. And this is a sample of our case manager going in and assisting a senior who had severe hoarding issues this past year. Our home-delivered meals program serves the elderly and frail. Requirements of this program is that the client must be 60 years of age or older and homebound and living in Glendale, Locker Center, or Montrose. We deliver 7 frozen meals to the seniors at their home. This is a sample of what we, after it's prepared, this is what it looks like. This year we participated in the Thanksgiving food drive, and our campaign was Drive to Touch Lives. So we requested that city employees decorate bags and we would distribute them to homebound seniors. Our city employees actually were able to drive along and meet seniors, and we collected over 120 bags. Not only did a lot of our city staff attend, also elected officials wanted to get in on the Drive to Touch Lives campaign. There's our police chief, our city clerk, there's Onig Bolanikian, and council member Sinanian. We also provided emergency meals this year. The emergency meals are 3 non-perishable food items that seniors could eat, for instance, like a day like today. If it's really hot, they can't get out. They're non-perishable, 3 days worth of meals, just in case of a disaster or an emergency. This past December, we had our Santa to a Senior program. This is a collaboration with Home Instead Senior Care. They provide the gifts, and we provide our meal driver who dresses up as Santa and delivers those gifts to our homebound seniors. We also had 2 proclamations this past year. In March, we celebrated March for Meals Month, and City Council recognized the proclamation who Olga Guevara, she's our senior volunteer who accepted the proclamation. And this year, we also celebrated Older Americans Month, which was in May. And I don't know if you can notice the Older Americans Month logo is down there. This year's theme is Blaze a Trail. And because of that, we asked Jerry Burnham, who works with Trails and Open Space, he volunteers there, to accept the proclamation on behalf of all seniors in Glendale. Our Senior Services Unit was responsible this year for coordinating the 90-plus birthday celebration with over 250 seniors in attendance celebrating birthdays of seniors 90 years or older. We had a king and queen of our prom. Our prom theme was Under the Sea, and there's our king and queen, 100 and 102 years old. And again, we had our dignitaries in attendance. We also participated in the Los Angeles County Older Americans Day recognition. We nominated 2 of our seniors. There's Jerry Burnham again with Supervisor Antonovich, as well as Richard Jover, who helps and volunteers at the sports complex in the Masters Soccer program. Our Congregate Meals program offers meals 7 days a week at the Adult Recreation Center, 5 days at Spar Heights Community Center, and then 3 days, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at Pacific Park Community Center. That's a sample of a congregate meal. And I'm going to go ahead and complete the PowerPoint presentation, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our director, Jess Duran, for always supporting senior services. So thank you very much, Jess. We really do appreciate all you've done for our programs and our seniors. I'll take questions now.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Just to read it into the record, 6C is Maple Park Community Center Annual Report. As our director stated, we don't have a presentation. So if I may, I'll move forward to 6D, Workforce Overview Report.
Great, thank you. President Wu and members of the Commission, my name is Judith Velasco, and I'm the Workforce Administrator. It's my pleasure today to provide you an overview of the work that we do at the Verdugo Workforce Development Board, and hopefully provide also history and background on the long years that we've done this type of work and answer any questions you might have. So what is workforce development and what are workforce boards? So basically, if you look at number 1, workforce law is passed by Congress. Now, there's always been some type of workforce legislation dating back to President Nixon in the late 1970s. And since that time, we've had workforce legislation that provides funding and services that enables us to provide training programs as well as employment services to the general public. Now, once Congress passes the workforce legislation, it gets distributed to the different states. So the state of California receives its allocation of funding based on the amount that's passed by Congress. And these federal funds then get distributed to local areas. So in the state of California, we have about 48 local areas. Specifically, the area that impacts Glendale is the Verdugo Consortium area, comprised of Glendale, Burbank, and La Cunada Flint Ridge. So these areas are governed by boards. Boards are responsible to set the policy direction. So the Verdugo Workforce Development Board is operated through a joint powers agreement with the three cities of Burbank, Glendale, and La Cunada Flint Ridge. So as I mentioned before, we've always had workforce legislation dated back to the late 70s. So this is actually a question I get asked on a regular basis. How did these three cities come together? And basically at the time in the late 70s, there was a requirement that in order to form an area, you needed a minimum population of about 300,000. So at that time, the three cities got together to form the Verdugo Consortium through a joint powers agreement. In this agreement, it was decided that the city of Glendale become the administrative agent, basically administrating the activities of this consortium of this area. And what that enables the city of Glendale to do is approve contracts, the fiscal administration, as well as program oversight. Therefore, all the members, all the employees of the Verdugo Workforce Development Board and the Verdugo Job Center are City of Glendale employees. Now, the board's role really is planning and policy overview of workforce development funds. Through policy and planning, we prepare and connect residents to job. We really help businesses create a quality workforce, and we help the local economy prosper by developing workforce initiatives. So the main responsibility of the board really is determining workforce needs. In the next slide, you're going to see most of our board members are comprised of local business members. We determine what the local workforce needs as it relates to training. We develop strategic plans in order to develop training programs that meet these workforce needs. And really, it's these workforce programs that help fill the gap that we see businesses need. Overall, our goal is to create workforce competitiveness in order to stimulate the economy and make sure that businesses have the strong workforce that they need moving forward. So the workforce legislation, as I mentioned before, is a very complex legislation. I would say it's about 800 pages long, and it details exactly how our board needs to be functioned. It really is a public and private partnership, mostly comprised of business executives. Over 51% of our board has to represent the business industry. We also have to have labor leaders on our board. 20%, to be exact, have to represent the labor area. On our board, we also have educational leaders, which consist of higher ed, adult education and literacy, as well as government and community leaders, special populations representatives. We have people from the Department of Rehabilitation on our board, as well as Los Angeles County Department of Social Services and economic and community development representatives. So it's really a diverse group of individuals coming together to determine workforce policy and needs. Now, because our board makes up the three cities, board members are political appointments. And thus, there's a separate entity called the Arroyo Verdugo Subregion Steering Committee made up of city council representatives from the three cities that approve all board nominations. So listed below are the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act will tell us exactly how many board members we need from business and labor. So usually our business area, when it says business nominates business, we get nominations from the local Chamber of Commerce as well as internally from our business member. And the labor nominates labor. We go with the Los Angeles County Area Federation that nominates labor members to our board. So all these nominations get submitted for appointment to the Arroyo Verdugo Subregion Steering Committee for formal appointment. Now, the Verdugo Job Center is the program operator of the board, and they're the ones that provide the direct services to clients and employers. We have approximately 45 staff comprised of case managers, business representatives, administration staff, and youth staff at the Verdugo Job Center. We're co-located with the state agency Employment Development Department. They're probably best known for delivering unemployment insurance. Services we offer typically include skills training in high-demand fields, a no-cost computer resource area, workshops, and social service referrals. Now, the program year hasn't completely ended, so these statistics are only from July 1st, 2015 to April 30th, 2016. So as of that time period, we've had a total customer visits about over 25,000 individuals. Average number of visits per month is around 2,500. Number of staff-assisted customers is about 873, and number of customers in training is 123. So just to explain a little bit about statistics. Anybody is able to access our services who are looking for jobs, but because of our location, our building actually used to be an unemployment insurance building. People come into our center asking for questions related to workforce, housing, food stamps, different types of assistance. So we assist any customers with their questions. So therefore, not all customers are technically enrolled in our center programs. So staff, once we enroll them and they fill out our paperwork, we then enroll them and they become staff-assisted customers. So even though we provide assistance to everybody, that's not necessarily listed in the 873. It's probably, we deliver more than that type of assistance to the general public. Number of customers in training, those are a number of customers currently in training. It doesn't capture all the customers that have completed training and currently are either looking for a job or found a job. So who are our customers? So the individuals we serve are usually adults with barriers to employment. They might be laid off workers who are recently displaced to no fault of their own, or just generally unemployed individuals. The youth that we serve are either in-school youth who are currently enrolled in post-secondary education or in high school, or out-of-school youth who are not connected to any type of education whatsoever. The businesses that we serve are any type of businesses, small, large, medium size. We also help businesses as it relates to layoff prevention and assistance. We have funding to work with the businesses and a local consulting company we work with to see if there's areas in the business we can improve or identify to help prevent layoffs. We work with businesses, too, who are about to lay off individuals. So because we're federally funded, and I was mentioning before the 800-page workforce legislation we have to comply with, this year the workforce legislation, the big push is to provide services to people who have barriers to employment. So the priority of service for us are people who are low income, English language learners, basic skills needs, veterans, and people with disabilities. So our efforts are placed to finding resources for individuals with these barriers, seeking additional grant opportunities so we can help people with these barriers, and also if funds are limited at any time, these individuals will receive first access to funding for training. Generally speaking, our products for job seekers or people looking for work, we have career assessment and planning. We have different types of career assessment tools that we work with individuals on and helping them either identify their career or identify career pathways in their career. Job training opportunities, which we're probably best known for. We have funding to pay for skills upgrade if people want to change careers. We have different types of job search tools and workshops that we provide, as well as computer workshops. We also have access to unemployment insurance information, which is a very complex system, so people can come to our center to learn more about their unemployment insurance and get assistance. We have adult education and literacy through our partnerships with the school system and also with the library, and just general job search assistance. We also have products for youth summer and year-round, mostly provided by the Glendale Youth Alliance, is our youth contractor, again, with the youth. We do career guidance and counseling, paid work experience, career assessment, leadership development. really job readiness mentoring. We provide for the youth more intensive supportive services because of the age group and also because of the supportive service needs, so bus tokens, clothing, food, different things that the youth might need, not necessarily that the adult population has. Our general products for business, really a lot of what we offer does mirror something about staffing, what staffing companies like Robert Half or Apple One has, but we offer it at no cost. We do customized recruiting. We pre-screen applicants for employers. They tell us exactly what they're looking for, and through our database of individuals that are unemployed, we're able to send them resumes to be considered. We do customized training for our employers. A lot of times they come to us wanting specialized customer service training for prospective employers, and we do that. We actually are doing that recently for an employer looking to hire truck drivers, and I think I mentioned that at another meeting. Even though certain positions you might feel might not need customer service, every position we're encountering is requiring a heavy customer service emphasis. Salary reimbursements for new hires, we have what's called on-the-job training incentives. So for an employer looking to hire someone who not necessarily has the experience, but they might have a training background, we offer incentives for them to consider our candidates to hire. Again, we offer layoff assistance as well as business retention and layoff prevention. And this is all due to the federal funding that we receive to provide these services to businesses. So our system is called the One-Stop Center. So in a one-stop, the idea is really to leverage our resources with other partners that probably provide services to similar clients that need not only employment services but social services. So these are some partners that we have partnered with recently to provide kind of array and comprehensive services to a person's need. LA County Department of Social Services, Glendale Community College, Burbank Adult School, Department of Rehab, Economic Development, just to name a few. So I mentioned before, we are federally funded. Half of our funding, $2.5 million, comes directly from the federal government that gets funneled to the state of California. The other half of our funding is really through competitive grants that we're constantly seeking out and looking for. And these competitive grants really allows us to design innovative programs for the priority of service population that I mentioned, people with disabilities, veterans, low income. And just recently, we were awarded a grant to assist 30 individuals, people who are autistic, in being trained in the manufacturing industry as CNC machinists. So again, I would say any given time we're applying between 5 to 10 competitive grants in order to supplement our funding from the federal government. Now, some of our previous accomplishments have been that we've been able to retrain about 2,000 entertainment workers. We've been able to save about 130 jobs and create 24 new jobs and train about 300 nurses. And again, these are just really a sample of some of the accomplishments we've done. We've been able to do this through the competitive grants that we've been awarded, as well as through our partnership with businesses. So anytime a business has a layoff in Glendale, Burbank, or La Cañada, Flintridge, we are alerted of this layoff. We're then able to submit funding requests to assist those individuals being laid off, and we're able to directly connect with those individuals to provide them with training services. So over the course of, I would say, 5 years, we've retrained about 2,000 entertainment workers, because that's actually an area where individuals are laid off once a project ends. So we see kind of cyclical layoffs in that particular area occur on and off. In terms of the saving 130 jobs and creating 24 new jobs, through a special grant through the federal government, which is called layoff aversion, we're able to do a contract with a consulting company that goes and identifies businesses that might be at risk of laying off individuals, and through those federal funds, we're able to save jobs that could be potentially laid off. And we're able to work with the hospitals to train new nurses, because once a student graduates from nursing school and they're hired by a hospital, there's a period of time that hospital cannot bill for that student's time. They're basically in what's called a training phase. So during that training phase, we're able to supplement the money that's lost through our on-the-job training funds and help the hospital really hire new nurses as an incentive for them to keep them on board. Just recently, we've updated our vision and mission for the board. Really, the Verdugo Workforce Development Board, our vision is to have an economically vibrant Tri-City region where businesses are thriving, youth and job seekers are on career paths that reflect their highest potential. We really want to transform lives, businesses, and community service through our innovative workforce training program. So I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Please.
Are you coordinating any of your efforts with Economic Development's tech initiative?
Yes, actually, I'm glad you asked. We're excited to be part of Tech Week. We're actually going to host a job fair specific to technology jobs, and we're reaching out to employers who have different types of job openings. Because our population has different barriers to employment, we always try to find the career pathway of entry-level positions. So that's what we're hoping to do in Tech Week, identify entry-level technology positions as well as more advanced level, and to bring a diverse group of employers and job openings.
Glad you're taking advantage of that.
Yes. That's one of our big goals, to strengthen our relationship with economic development. And actually, the Deputy Director, Darlene Sanchez, sits on our board, so we work really closely with her and her team.
One of the slides had some figures as far as youth. Do you have any data as to how many youth are utilizing our services, and how do we reach out to those youth to let them know of the availability of our programs?
Sure, and that's a great question, President Wu. Our youth program is probably one of our most popular programs, just because, especially during the summertime, we are funded through at Los Angeles County Department of Community and Senior Services, and usually the individuals we can enroll in that program have to meet specific criteria. They have to be low income. So they usually give us a list of students whose family is receiving either cash aid assistance, and we go off that list that live in our zip code. I know Glendale Youth Alliance, through their nonprofit board, they try to fundraise in order to assist individuals who do not meet the income requirement, because, again, that's a very popular program that we always get about over 300 applications for maybe less than 100 slots. And I know the Glendale Youth Alliance has done a successive marketing on their website, authored through GTV6, and they're actually accepting applications right now for their summer program. Again, they also try to seek out funding or other resources to meet the demands of youth wanting to participate.
So Judith, how many youth per year do we serve?
It depends. The year round, at least, over 300 at any given time. And again, it varies on the funding specifically. Sometimes LA County will talk to the board and say, can you accept another 50,000 youth to, $50,000 to serve 10 youth. So we get calls throughout the year to increase the amount of youth that we serve. So anywhere, I would say, between 200 to 300. I know that's a big gap, but the funding really determines how many youth that we serve.
Are the services provided strictly only in English, or any other languages that it's offered in?
Sure. I would say, generally speaking, our services are provided in English, but we have bilingual staff that are able to assist people who speak Spanish as well as people who speak Armenian. And anytime somebody requests a specific language, we do our best to work with our on-site partner, the Employment Development Department, to see if we can provide services in other language. Our goal really is to provide as diverse service that we can to the general public, depending on the need. Sometimes we do have to seek outside resources to do that, but people who do, it's not a requirement that you speak English to be enrolled in our programs.
And how many staff do we have?
About 45, and that includes
part-time?
A combination of part-time and full-time staff, yes. And that includes the youth staff as well.
And the hours
Sure. The hours of operation, our center is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and we're located at 1255 South Central Avenue in Glendale.
Very much.
Yes, and I also want to add, I want to also thank Mr. Duran for his support of the workforce program. This is a very complex program in that there's a lot of workforce legislation and requirements that have to be done in a short period of time. So very few people really understand our intricacy, and I would say Mr. Duran is one of the few who understand our programs. Has always been a huge advocate. So I wanted to acknowledge him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should make this the official Jess Duran Day. Next item, please.
Next item is 6E, Winter Shelter Program Closeout Report.
Thank you, Iris. Good afternoon, President Wu, members of the Parks Commission, Yvette Samvalian. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. We're saving that for the homeless count report. Before you, we have the Winter Shelter Closeout. The Winter Shelter Program is a regional funded program through the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and which is a joint use power authority between cities and county of Los Angeles. LASA is typically the agency that contracts the Winter Shelter Program with local cities that operate continuum of care programs, and typically reach out to those local communities to host a winter shelter program. Historically, the city of Glendale for the last 18 years has been a hosting site for the winter shelter program. And this year, no difference, specifically due to the El Nino, anticipation of the El Nino weather. LASA reached out to the city of Glendale to see if we would be able to host another year of winter shelter. As such, city staff identified a location, which was 1219 Los Angeles Street in the city of Glendale, and LASA reached out to Essentia, who is our homeless services provider in the city of Glendale, to see if they would be willing to operate the winter shelter program. As it is, the winter shelter program is not typically fully funded, and the nonprofit organization who needs to fund the program needs to raise adequate funding for match and volunteers to support the program. Essentia did agree to operate the program, and the winter shelter began its operation on November 16th of 2015 and completed its project on March 31st, November 16, 2015, and completed March 31st, 2016. The Essentia, in collaboration with the City of Glendale and City of Burbank, served over 12,000 duplicated homeless persons, which comprises of 546 unduplicated homeless persons. At a point, initially, the maximum capacity was 90, and it reached out to 130 homeless persons throughout the end of the season due to the need and El Nino. Anytime the Glendale Winter Shelter reached the capacity, which is typically often, between 2 to 10 clients were referred to local shelters, including nearby shelter in Pacoima and or Silmar and City of Pasadena. And due to the El Nino season or sessions, the winter shelter opened 24 hours for a couple of days throughout the season. In terms of fiscal impact, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority funds the project based on a bed capacity. The details of that is on page 3 of the report. There is specifically no fiscal impact to the city, although this year the Community Services and Parks Department supported some funding for the winter shelter program due to additional modifications needed for the building to be at compliance with permitting. Glendale Police Department and Glendale Fire Department, our emergency response team, are always very supportive of the winter shelter program and coordinate with our winter shelter subcommittee that meets on a biweekly basis to address the needs of our clients. We did have about 102 calls to the Glendale Police Department, which resulted into 12 arrests between the entire season, and about 35 calls to the emergency response team, fire department, which of the 35, certain numbers needed advanced level of life support and some needed basic life support, which is, the details again is on page 4 of our report. With regards to City of Burbank, they have been partnering with the City of Glendale and Essentia to address the homelessness regionally, and they supported funding the winter shelter program this season as well. In terms of some demographics, which is on page 5 of our report, I'd like to just note a few things. Of the 546 persons that were served, City of Glendale residents represented about 22%. So about 112 of our individuals were utilizing the winter shelter program. The rest of the statistics or clients are from the nearby community that included Burbank, Pasadena, Los Angeles, and other communities in our neighborhood. One specific question I wanted to, fact I wanted to bring up to your attention, which also will be discussed at our homeless point in time count report, is that some of the prior living situation, which is page 5 of our report, most of our participants are unsheltered. So we had 202 unduplicated homeless persons that were unsheltered that needed the winter shelter and utilized it during the available season. And we had about 145 that were in different emergency type of shelter programming, which either they completed their stay at those other programs and or were moving around from one winter shelter to another. And certain number of our participants are discharged from the hospitals and or psychiatric facilities, including some of participants were discharged from jail. And because the winter shelter program is the last resort, it's a low barrier program, not a lot of case management is provided at that programming, and there's no background check. The clients are able to utilize the winter shelter program. During the season, we served about 24 veterans throughout the season at the winter shelter program. Of those 24, 3 were from City of Glendale, 3 from Burbank, 6 from LA, and 12 from other communities. And Arsene will talk about the homeless count on that one particular day, number of veterans, and what our plans are with regards to the veterans that are participating in our programs. I'd like to add that most recently we did partner with the Veterans Administration through our housing authority to receive 15 VASH vouchers, which is it's a subsidized vouchers for veterans, and so we'll be working directly with our housing department to house some of our chronically homeless veterans that we had identified during the point in time count, and as well as the winter shelter program. The winter shelter program again is cannot run without the volunteers. Special thanks to all the volunteers that have supported the program with time, with donations, with food. The details of that is included on page 6 of our report. And I do want to thank specifically Essencia, who has been taking the leadership role in running the winter shelter program for the City of Glendale, including our Glendale Police Department Community Impact Team, Officer Stephen Kozitz, who actually has supported the program and helped work with the Continuum of Care staff to be able to ensure participants are complying and as well as receiving services to move on to the housing housing services. The Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority typically issues an annual proposal. We anticipate the proposal to be issued late July in anticipation of the next fiscal year winter shelter program. And so staff will come back to the commission to request for direction with regards to next year as it relates to the winter shelter program. And if there's any particular questions, I can take them now.
Any questions?
You did say that you had reached capacity at times and referred people to other shelters. Was anyone turned away?
President Wu, Commissioner Michaels, no one was turned away at all. What we did is we actually offered bus transportation to the clients who when we didn't have capacity. The only people that are typically turned away if they don't like to go to the other shelter, but that wasn't the case in the City of Glendale.
Thank you.
President Wu,
Yes, sir.
if I may add, Yvette mentioned that we work very closely with the police department, and part of a good neighbor policy that we've had in place for probably over 10, maybe 15 years is the ability to exclude or suspend participants that do not obey the rules. And so we've agreed to development of a list of persons that will not be allowed in the Glendale shelter because of their behavior and, in essence, trying to ruin it for everyone else. You can imagine hosting winter shelters are not easy. There is an impact on the community. I have to give kudos to our police department and our fire department. They exercised a lot of patience, a lot of tolerance. They responded whenever they were called. They worked closely with Yvette, and since they're a nonprofit sponsor, and I can't say enough about that teamwork and that partnership. And I also need to give credit to the City Council. Yvette mentioned that the department provided $45,000 in assistance to help make modifications to the building, which was a warehouse, to allow it to accommodate a winter shelter operation. And that was all by the City Council. The City Council added that funding to our budget to allow us to do that. And the City Council fully understands what the impacts of a winter shelter program are. And I think in the end, always a default to it just being the right thing to do. As Yvette mentioned, based on our count, we do have 240 homeless persons in our community at any given night. So they are able to be served in addition to our participants and homeless persons that need shelter from our neighboring communities. So it's a difficult operation, but we tend to be able to do it year after year, and we'll see what happens next year.
Thank you. I have a quick question. On a day like today, do we offer any like a cooling center? Day like today, I think that in addition to the winter shelters.
President Wu, Street Outreach will go out to the community and identify our clients and take it to the Access Center, which is Essencia's one-stop center. So we'll offer some of our clients there. Most of our clients who may be homeless and seniors typically do utilize the Adult Recreation Center or one of our senior services that are cooling stations.
And would that be just during the day, or how about in the evening and the late hours?
President Wu, unfortunately, we don't have a day center for homeless in the city of Glendale, nor do we have any available night shelters that are drop-in services at this time. We do work with our neighboring community. The Los Angeles Housing Authority has many other drop-in shelters that we do inform our participants to utilize if they're interested in utilizing. But at the moment, we don't have a day center at the city of Glendale or drop-in shelter that's available. We have year-round shelters in the city that it's 40-bed. It's typically full, but it's a year-round case management tailored, not a drop-in programming.
President Wu, members of the commission, we do have cooling centers for the public at ARC, Pacific, and Spar Heights. But if there's a homeless individual that needs to come in and cool off, staff will let them in for them to cool off, get a drink of water, and relax until the weather drops down to regular degrees temperature.
Thank you. Yeah.
But we do have our cooling centers open till 9 o'clock tonight.
Okay.
And usually if it's over 100 degrees, we extend our hours nights and weekends.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Duran, for your time and commitment to homeless services. We appreciate your support. Thank you to the Commission who is here to support us with homeless services.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next on the agenda is 6F, 2016 City of Glendale Homeless Count Report.
Right. President Wu, members of the Commission, my name is Arsenio Sayan, Homeless Programs Coordinator, and I'm here today to provide a presentation on the 2016 homeless count. Some people might ask, what is the purpose of the count? Why go out one day, do a point-in-time count of the homeless population in the city of Glendale? It is required by the Department of Housing and Urban Development for all jurisdictions who receive Continuum of Care funding to conduct a one-day point-in-count time of the unsheltered and sheltered homeless population. And not just for the city of Glendale, but for all jurisdictions. The last 10 days of January is when this count needs to be conducted. So in order for the city of Glendale to comply with this requirement and to substantiate the need for homeless services and funding, this count must be conducted. One thing I wanted to mention is the Department of Housing and Urban Development does not require an unsheltered count on an annual basis. However, the City of Glendale chooses to do an unsheltered and a sheltered count to be able to identify the current trends in our community as it relates to the homeless population and the subpopulations. So it is a lot of work on our end, but we think that it is important to do this to get a better understanding of what is currently happening in our community. And we also want to respond to the unmet needs and gaps in our community as it relates to homeless individuals and families, and also to be able to strategize locally and community-wide and help meet the goal of ending homelessness within the 10 years, our strategic goal in ending homelessness and veterans' homelessness.
Arsenic, could you explain sheltered versus unsheltered?
Absolutely, yes. The sheltered count consists of the emergency shelters here in Glendale. We have the 40-bed year-round shelter that's operated through our lead agency, Essentia. And this year, we also have the Regional Winter Shelter Program that was hosted by the City of Glendale and funded by the Los Angeles Housing Services Authority. And I will get into the details of that as well later on in the PowerPoint presentation. But we also include our transitional housing program here in the City of Glendale that's operated by Door of Hope. So those three components are what we use to conduct our sheltered count. The unsheltered count is just a street count on the day and night. On a specific day and night. We also have our local service providers who also set up on that day to make sure that they count any homeless clients that might utilize their centers and their services. The count this year took place on Wednesday, January 27th from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. It was a survey count of sheltered and unsheltered homeless population. And again, it did include our emergency shelters, our transitional housing programs, and a street count. The homeless count is meant to answer the primary question of how many homeless persons are here in the City of Glendale. On Wednesday, January 27th, we enumerated a total of 240 unduplicated homeless persons. This compares to 208 in 2015. So as you can see, there was a 15% increase in our homeless population during our 2016 count. Of the 240 unduplicated homeless persons, 185 were sheltered and 55 were unsheltered. So as you can see, we had a 52% increase in our sheltered population in the City of Glendale. And we had a 36% decrease in our unsheltered population. I do want to mention that this is primarily due to the operation of the Winter Shelter Program. A lot of individuals, homeless individuals, tend to utilize the Winter Shelter Program. More families are referred out. They do not utilize our winter shelter. So therefore, we did see a significant increase in our sheltered population this year. We had about 46% of the surveys that were completed were from the Winter Shelter Program. Followed by the Winter Shelter Program, we have 17% from Essensia's emergency shelter, 13% from our Door of Hope Transitional Housing Program, and as you can see, less than 10% for all of our other agencies, such as the Adult Recreation Center, Catholic Charities, Glendale Adventist Medical Center, the Verdugo Job Center. Then we also had the AM Unsheltered Count, PM Unsheltered Count, and of course the Glendale Unified School District. So this really shows us that the 15% increase in our numbers is primarily due to the operation of the Winter Shelter Program here at the City of Glendale. And we have the population and subpopulation characteristics for you. Individuals, 176 out of the 240 that were enumerated. That's 73% of our homeless population consists of homeless individuals. We have persons and families at about 27%. Children represented 16%. Now, these children were all accompanied. The City of Glendale did not have any homeless children or youth under the age of 18 that were unaccompanied, sheltered or unsheltered, on the night of the count. Seniors represented 14% of this total count. Chronically homeless represented 52%, 104 out of the 201 adults. And if you notice, there is a difference in the numbers. We have 240 total persons, which includes children. However, chronically homeless individuals, we can only include adults. So that's about a 52% jump in our chronically homeless population. Chronic mental illness, we had about 11%, substance abuse 10%, DV 21%, AIDS 3%, and veterans represented 5%. We also asked the question on our survey on the day of the count for those individuals who were homeless if they became homeless here in the city of Glendale. 34%, which is 69 out of the 201 adults, said yes when they were asked if they became homeless here in the city of Glendale.
What does DV stand for?
DV, domestic violence.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So here are the numbers in terms of homeless individuals and family. We had a total of 176 versus 64 families. The good news is we had a 26% decrease in our homeless families, which is great news for our continuum. The bad news is that we did have a 44% in our homeless individuals. We do believe that the decrease in our homeless families of 26% is also due to the implementation of our coordinated entry system that was created back in 2000. It was implemented back in 2011. Our coordinated entry system was basically created to have all of our homeless clients utilize one service site for all of their homeless services needs. Essentia, being our lead agency, reaches out to our homeless population in the community, brings them into the center quickly as possible, assesses our clients, and quickly links them to housing, permanent supportive housing, and other homeless services. So we do also believe that the decrease in our families was due to the implementation of our coordinated entry system. So this section is actually really important because it really shows us what percentage of the homeless population are actually Glendale homeless persons. Of the 240 surveyed, a total of 69 persons answered yes to becoming homeless in Glendale, just 29%. And of those 69 homeless persons who answered yes, only 23 utilized the winter shelter on the night of the count, which is about 33%. So the 23 that did utilize the winter shelter represented 10% of the total homeless persons that were enumerated on the night of the count. So 90% of the homeless persons that were included in our sheltered population were outside Glendale homeless persons that happened to utilize our shelter on that night. We also have the DV population. We did see a decrease in our domestic violence population. It'll be about a 32% decrease, which was really good news. One thing that we did notice this year is we're actually starting to see this trend with male households, single male households with children. They are starting to experience domestic violence. So that's something that we hadn't seen in our previous homeless counts that we are now starting to see. It's not much, we have 2, but that's something to definitely keep an eye on in our future counts. Again, the 2016 homeless count revealed a 12% increase in the age group, as far as age demographics go, age group 25 to 50. It's a trend nationally, not just here at the city of Glendale, but homeless persons ages 25 to 50 tend to be the highest utilizers of the winter shelter program. And that is why you also see a 12% increase within this age group, 25 to 50. The good news is we did see a slight decrease in our transitional age youth, 18 to 24. They represented about 4% of the total homeless population in Glendale. Age group 61 and over represented 14%. And another good news is that no unaccompanied youth, as I mentioned earlier, was identified on the night of the count. Homeless count as far as gender demographics, again, here we see a 27% increase in the male population and a 20% increase in the female population. And as you can see, homeless males and females, single homeless male and females, are about 121 versus, males and females and families are much less in numbers. So that's also a good indication that the individuals who are utilizing the winter shelter program are what kind of drove up our numbers and our homeless count. As far as race demographics go, 59% people identified themselves as white, 33% identified themselves as black or African American, and less than 10% identified themselves in all the other categories as Asian, American Indian, Native Alaskan, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and multiple races. 33% did identify themselves as Hispanic or Latino. I'm not going to go into the full detail of the definition of chronically homeless, but HUD has a certain criteria for individuals to meet in order for them to qualify as chronically homeless. And some of those include a disabling condition. They have to live in a place that's not meant for human habitation. And they have to have certain episodes of homelessness that are equivalent to a year or more, or have multiple episodes in the last 3 years that are equivalent to 12 months. So it is a little bit of a confusing definition, but folks who are chronically homeless must meet this definition, and the full definition is under Appendix B in your report, the homeless count report. So the subpopulation, the chronically homeless subpopulation, is really an area that the City of Glendale would like to focus on, since HUD does expect for continuums to lower this number for us to align with their strategic goal in ending chronic homelessness in 10 years. 113 chronically homeless persons identified as chronically homeless on the night of the count. This compares to 69 in 2015. That's a substantial increase, about a 64% in our chronically homeless population. Over 100%, there was an over 100% increase in the chronically homeless sheltered population, which again, due to the operation of the winter shelter program here in Glendale, we did see a huge jump in our chronically homeless sheltered population, from 10 last year to 78 this year. The unsheltered population, good news is there was a 31% decrease, which is something that HUD will be paying special attention to during our renewal process for all of our COC projects. There was a decrease in the 31%. Again, Glendale is working very closely. All of our Glendale agencies are working very closely with our lead agency, Essentia, through our CES system to make sure that we identify all of our unsheltered, chronically homeless clients who have a lot of barriers, and to identify permanent housing as quickly as possible for these clients and get them off the streets and into housing. So that's the chronically homeless individuals and families. Again, we see a 42% jump from last year, 57 to 99. And families, we had 12 last year, we have 14 this year, so not a significant increase there. The special needs subpopulation, I do want to note that we do include adults only. We do not count children under this subpopulation. So 11% of the total homeless persons that were counted did indicate that they had a serious mental illness. 10% did have chronic substance abuse. 14% had some type of chronic health condition such as diabetes, heart trouble, high blood pressure, seizures, and such. 33% did identify themselves as, 3% did identify themselves as HIV positive, or with AIDS. 14% did have a permanent physical disability, and 7% did have developmental disability. And this is an area that we as a continuum do pay special attention to, because we really want to be able to target these clients and connect them to the appropriate services that they need. Unfortunately, because these surveys are self-disclosed, there's undoubtedly low percentages here, but the clients do self-disclose this on their survey. So some people don't feel comfortable releasing this information to us. So we did work with what we have. About 29% did, however, indicate that they don't know if they have some type of a special need. We did experience a 4% increase in our veterans population this year. I do want to note that the City of Glendale did functionally end veterans homelessness in 2015. However, again, because of the operation of the winter shelter program, and also just in our community, we have new folks that do come in that are veterans and are experiencing homelessness. So we did identify 10 chronic homeless veterans, of which 5 identified themselves as chronically homeless. 2 were sheltered on the night of the count, and 8 were unsheltered. However, we do believe that the 8 would have been sheltered. Possibly there was no room at the winter shelter program. And sometimes veterans tend to want to live on the streets. They don't like to utilize the shelter system. So when they come in, if they're unhappy, they end up back on the streets. So we did see a significant increase there in the unsheltered count. 2 out of the 5 chronically homeless veterans have been placed into permanent housing. I'm happy to announce that. 2 out of the 5 were Glendale veterans, so we have immediately connected them through our CES system to Essentia, and they have been successfully placed now. And so that's really good news for our continuum. So what are the next steps? The next steps are for the City of Glendale Continuum of Care to work closely with the various subpopulations to identify the special needs in our community and what some of our homeless clients need in order to access our services and maintain permanent housing. We really need to continue to work with our lead agency and practice the Housing First model, which is to bring our chronically homeless clients in. First thing is to get them into housing and then connect them to all the appropriate services to make sure that they continue to maintain their housing. And also to continue to work strategically to reprioritize available funds, to reallocate programs that are no longer had priority to maintain our competitive status and continue to secure future funding for our continuum. Our recommendations, the ending veterans homelessness. What we are doing in the City of Glendale is our outreach team works aggressively to identify our veterans chronically homeless population. And we do give them priority for any type of permanent housing program that becomes available in the City of Glendale. Any turnover units over at Veterans Village or Section 8 program, or even in our own Shelter Plus Care permanent housing programs, we make sure that we prioritize our chronically homeless veterans and our chronically homeless persons here in the City of Glendale. So we will continue to do that. Our second recommendation would be to continue to implement the Housing First to target the chronically homeless. And we're also we will continue the implementation of our rapid rehousing program here at the City of Glendale to address the needs of our newly homeless clients here at the City of Glendale, primarily families, youth, working youth, ages 18 to 24, to get them back into housing and connect them to services as quickly as possible. And recommendation 4 would be we've gone over that, but to implement the Housing First permanent housing program. The City Council may consider the implementation of the Housing First permanent housing program. They would designate 15 vouchers for local homeless persons at an annual cost of $350,000, or to develop a new construction in collaboration with the Community Development and Housing Department and Community Services and Parks Department to serve the chronically homeless population. And our last recommendation is the collaboration with our Glendale Police Department, Community Impact Bureau, and the Department of Mental Health. The Glendale Police Department has teamed up with the Department of Mental Health, and a clinician will be assigned with each police officer and an outreach team here at the City of Glendale as well to assess a lot of the chronically homeless clients who do come in contact with our Glendale police officers. Sometimes they don't have the time or the expertise to assess the clients to see if there are any special needs. So therefore the clinician and the outreach team will be qualified to do that assessment and to link them to the appropriate mental health services. And instead of, them having to go through the jail system or to get arrested, this way they will be linked to the appropriate services. So that does conclude our report. I do want to thank the Glendale Continuum of Care board members. I do want to thank the Parks Commission. I want to thank the Glendale Police Department. This count would not have been possible without their support. And I want to thank the homeless alumni who participated on that day and our community volunteers. This could not have been done without them. So That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Questions?
Yes. In 2014 and 2016, you had 185 shelter beds. There was a decrease in 2015. Do you know the reason for that?
Yes. There was a decrease in 2015, again, because the City of Glendale did not operate the winter shelter program. We did host a pickup and drop-off site to transport the clients to Pacoima. However, we did not have a physical winter shelter location here on site. So that was the primary reason why you see the difference in the numbers, the increase in 2016 and the decrease in 2015.
So then looking at 2015 with a decreased number of beds, there were more unsheltered individuals with the lack of the winter shelter in 2015?
No, the 2015 we actually, unsheltered beds for 2015?
In 2014, you had 185 shelter beds.
Yes.
In 2016, you also had that same number. There was a decrease in 2015. I'm trying to get a better understanding between.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Actually, I see what you're saying, Commissioner Michaels. In the 2015 homeless count, 2014, we did not conduct an unsheltered count. So that is why you actually don't see the numbers in your report. For 2014, we did not have a homeless count.
No, I do see there isn't a homeless
Just
count.
the sheltered only.
Right, the sheltered
yes.
only. I'm looking at specifically 2015, where there were fewer shelter beds.
Correct.
But to compare 2015 and 16, the last 2 years, to see what the difference would be.
Correct. The 2014 winter, we did have a winter shelter program hosted in the city of Glendale in 2014. That is why you also see the number that you see for 2014, the 185, because we did have the operation of the winter shelter program. Does that answer your question? No? Do you want to, Yvette can step in. And
President Wu, Commissioner Michaels, let me see if I can explain. The homeless count is a biannual requirement for the city of Glendale. So 2014, we weren't required to complete a unsheltered population. In 2014, we reported 185 sheltered programming, which is typically consistent of our shelter beds in the city of Glendale when we do host a winter shelter program. In 2014, we had a winter shelter program in the city of Glendale, and we hosted about 110 beds in 2014. So about 185 sheltered beds were available in 2014. Okay, so sheltered only. In 2015, we only had total of 208 homeless persons, but in 2015, 185 were unsheltered. So it's sort of the opposite. When we don't have a winter shelter program in the city of Glendale, we don't serve anywhere between 100 to 120 in homeless persons. So the variance is only when we host a winter shelter and we don't host a winter shelter. In 2015, we only had a pickup location for winter shelter, so most of our populations were unsheltered. We had high number of unsheltered and low number for sheltered programming. Our shelter beds, typically without the winter shelter, we have 40 beds at Ascensia. We have 10 beds from the YWCA women's domestic violence beds. That's total of 50. And in addition to that, we have total of 40 beds through transitional housing, which is Door of Hope. So that's about 85 beds or so that we have in our continuum without the winter shelter beds. If we do host a winter shelter program, our beds capacity is anywhere from 100 to 130, depending on the year and availability of funds from Los Angeles Services Authority.
No,
Is that answered?
You did address the question. There is the difference. I was just looking to see if there were any conclusions between the 2 years with different shelter beds available. If you could compare the count for 2015, 2016, if there were any different trends. Because you had referenced a lot of your numbers were comparing the exact numbers in specific groups, but didn't take into account the difference of shelter beds.
There is no difference in shelter beds. The only difference in shelter beds within our fiscal or our point in time count is the winter shelter. We have fixed beds year-round in the city of Glendale. So if we host a winter shelter program, our unsheltered population typically utilize the shelter, and our shelter participants increase, unsheltered decrease. If we don't have a winter shelter program, it's the opposite. So our sheltered increases and unsheltered decreases. So, for example, in 2016, we had 55 unsheltered homeless persons and 185 sheltered. That's the almost opposite of 2014. We had 185 shelter beds and 55 shelter beds and 185 or so unsheltered persons. Does that make sense?
That's what I was trying to get a better understanding of the impact of the winter shelter.
Yes. So if we have a winter shelter, we have about 130 additional beds throughout the season, and winter shelter program is considered as a sheltered component. So our participants during the day, while they may get surveyed, if they are a participant in the shelter, it's counted as sheltered. And so typically if they're sheltered, they're going to go under the sheltered count.
Thank you.
Does that answer? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for me?
I have a question. You gave us a lot of information. It's very challenging, and it looks like it's very complex also. What's the relationship between the Veterans Village and the Essentia? Like you are shifting some people from one side to the other side. Is there a relationship, or who administers both of them?
There is collaboration between Essentia and the City of Glendale and Community Development to house our chronically homeless veterans through Veterans Village, but there is no coordination in terms of the same funding. They're not part of the same department. We just work really closely with our agencies to prioritize our homeless veterans, and our Community Development team has been incredible. When vacancies do come up, they make sure to give us priority for our chronically homeless veterans for placement. So, does that answer your question?
If the veteran goes to Essentia, they would automatically send them to the village?
Not automatically. There is a waiting list process over at Essentia, so clients have to follow a waiting list process. Through our CES system, clients are assessed through our vulnerability index survey. There's a VI SPDAT, that's what it's called. Clients have to go through that survey for them to be able to get identified as chronically homeless. We also verify their veteran status. They do have to have an honorable discharge or anything other than a dishonorable discharge to qualify for the housing. But that's pretty much it. They go through Essentia. If there's an available vacancy, housing department reaches out to Essentia, our lead agency, and that's when the referral takes place. They refer out the clients.
So the Veterans Village is administered by the city?
Yes, through. Do you want to answer?
Commissioner Kalfayan, the Veterans Village is a housing project with the developer, and Community Development Housing is in charge of that program. Any units that are turned over that is prioritized for veteran homeless, only those units then are referred to the continuum, and Essentia is able to make those referrals. That's part of the affordable housing programming. Any units available that through the community, if it's specifically designated for homeless veterans, then the housing department coordinates with Essentia for those referrals. Park
and Recreation doesn't have any function in there. We don't.
In terms of function, our staff continues to provide the collaboration between the referral, ensures that the participant is actually enter the housing, and then coordinates Essentia for the case management services. But in terms of Parks and Recreation, overseeing the Veterans Village program, that's not one of our responsibility. The housing department oversees that program.
About if a veteran is disabled to go out and needs food and care, we do go out and
So, Commissioner Calfan, that's a great question. So, this is part of what Ascensia does with regards to case management. Once a client is placed, the case management still remains with the client. That is permanent housing with permanent supportive services. If a client is in need of any access to healthcare services or to take to their doctor's appointment, a case manager assigned to that particular homeless veteran will coordinate all those resources, including anything with regards to meals. And if it's a homebound senior, then we would coordinate with adult recreation center to be able to have the client receive those services and the benefits from our department's services.
Thank you.
Quick question. So once we identify a person, especially if they're chronically homeless, and we identify that they have some special needs, how do we go and coordinate and make sure that they are properly directed to other agencies that could help them with, for instance, if they have a substance abuse, if they have any medical issues, and how do we make sure that they are we keep them accountable and then they stay that course so they will be able to get the appropriate help that they need?
President Wu, that is a great question. Ascensia does have a substance abuse case manager on site. So as clients come through Ascensia, they are assessed, and if they do identify themselves as having some type of a special needs, such as substance abuse, they do quickly get connected to the substance abuse case manager, and they do provide the services and connect them to different service agencies that can provide that help. Unfortunately, because of the housing first model that the city of Glendale has implemented, we have to be really careful not to force the clients to. That can't be one of the restrictions or the requirements. We have to remove a lot of the barriers to housing, so we can encourage the clients to get the help that they need. And the substance abuse case managers do a great job in connecting the clients, following up with the clients, encouraging the clients. But unfortunately, that can't be one of their barriers to housing. Their first goal is to assess them and get them into housing as quickly as possible, and then encourage them with case management to continue services that they need to maintain their housing. It's kind of how the housing first approach works. It's low barrier. You got to remove the barriers and get clients in as quickly as possible.
President Wu, members of the commission, if I can try to simplify the whole thing. The city of Glendale receives about $2.3 to $2.5 million a year in funding for homeless programs through the Continuum of Care, and then a smaller amount for the Emergency Solutions Grant Program. And then we will provide about $1.3 million to Ascensia, and we rely on Ascensia to be the main centralized entry system for all homeless persons in Glendale needing services to enter our continuum of care system. Generally speaking, they all go through Ascensia. And Ascensia is responsible for the intake and the assessment and the counseling and the referrals. And so they will make recommendations to all of the other organizations that we work with, including the city and including the housing department when they build affordable homeless housing. So Ascensia is our primary homeless service provider. And so typically everything begins and ends with Ascensia. And in a nutshell, that's the way it works. Of course, there are nuances. We do operate our own what's called Shelter Plus Care program, where our office is responsible for placing, did you say approximately 50?
52 now.
52 homeless individuals into
permanent
apartments. Housing. And do we do that case management, or does Ascensia?
Ascensia provides the case management. We do administer the grant. We do the annual recertifications for the clients. We certify them on an annual basis. But Ascensia does take the lead in providing the day-to-day case management for our clients. So
Ascensia is responsible for coordinating with all the other agencies to provide services to our homeless population.
Thank you, President Wu.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the Commission. And I, too, would like to thank Jess Duran for his continued support for our homeless programs in the city of Glendale. We are going to miss you very much. Thank you.
Thanks. Next item, please.
Next is item 6G, section activity reports. At 1 is recreation and community services.
Okay, President Wu, members of the Commission, I'd like to highlight the One Glendale After School Recreation Sports Program. the program goals, back in 2013, we met with GUSD Assistant Superintendent, Early Education and Extended Learning Program supervisors and principals to discuss a collaboration where CSP, Community Services and Parks, can fill in the gaps that GUSD had in terms of recreation programming. So what we wanted to do is develop a low-cost or free recreation programming for elementary schools targeting south of the 134. When we met, we talked to the principals, and they wanted to have some type of organized sports programming, some competition among elementary schools, and some sort of recreation programming. So we identified a few options, one being a sports program, second being arts and crafts and education enrichment, sports and cheer program, and youth CrossFit training. So after going back and forth with the principals, we went ahead and decided to have a sports program with some arts and crafts and education enrichment, some nature education component, and nutrition and health component. So basically the sports program that we decided would be flag football, soccer, basketball, and volleyball. Students that weren't interested in the sports component of the program would basically participate in arts and crafts and education enrichment. I'm happy to say that all of the kids signed up this past year were interested in sports programming. We had, I believe, one or two kids that were interested in arts and crafts, but we convinced them to join the sports programs, and they liked it. And then we also have the nature education outdoor recreation component, the Glendale Outdoors, where once a session, they go up to Duke-Majan Park, and we have our open trails and space program providing the nature education component. And we work closely with Glendale Adventist. They provide the nutrition and health component. They come in once each session and talk about healthy eating, labeling, drinking more water, limiting juice and junk food, eating more fruits and vegetables. So program details for year 15-16, we targeted 4th and 5th graders from Cerritos, Mann, Marshall, and Edison Elementary. We used Glendale Unified School sites for practices. We hired 8 recreation leaders and staffed them at 2 rec leaders per school site. We operated Monday through Thursday, once school ends till 5 p.m. GUSD was responsible for recruiting the students, participants, and providing facilities. And then the EELP staff provided training to our city staff in terms of reporting and after-school programming. The total cost of the program for this year, 15-16, was $131,000. We had 4 8-week sessions at 4 schools. We had an in-kind from the city for program supervision in the amount of $32,956. Another in-kind from Glendale Parks and Open Space of $5,000, which provided the nature education component. We received a grant from Dignity Health in the amount of $20,000. And then an additional grant of $25,000 from Glendale Parks and Open Space, and the city's general fund funded the program for $48,244. Benefits of the One Glendale After School program: basically, the children who are not supervised after school have a place to go with some sort of structured activity, which in turn will promote their skills, build confidence, and lead, improve grades, help reduce juvenile crime by keeping children very busy, and promote healthy lifestyles and reduce childhood obesity. The performance measures: basically what we do is after each session, we go ahead and survey the parents, and basically we surveyed the last 3 sessions we've surveyed, and 76% of the participants improved their grades. 84% of the participants are eating more fruits and vegetables. 86% chose to drink water instead of soda or juice. A lot of the kids thought Gatorade, Powerade, orange juice were healthy. It's healthier than soda, but the sugar content is about the same as soda. So staff encouraged them to drink more water. 65% of the participants lost weight. 90% of the participants improved their confidence and show leadership skills. 90% of the participants improved their listening and behavior both at home and in school. So due to the popularity of the program, staff is proposing the One Glendale expansion to target again 4th and 5th graders from R.D. White, Muir, Columbus, and Jefferson Elementary. Use Glendale Unified School sites for practices. Hire an additional 8 recreation leaders to staff them 2 per site. Our target would be 960 to 1,000 youth per year for 16-17. The expansion cost total would be $314,000 with 4 8-week sessions at 8 schools. In kind for program supervision, $37,563, and then $5,000 from Glendale Parks and Open Space for the Glendale outdoors component. Currently funded by the general fund, $55,000. Balance needed, $217,000. And then I'm happy to announce that part of the 16-17 budget adoption last week, the City Council voted on the expansion and approved the expansion. So we'll be working with Glendale Unified within the coming weeks to finalize the program timeline and basically review the program with them and getting started hopefully by after Labor Day. Our first session would start right after Labor Day. So that'll give us enough time to register the students and purchase extra supplies for the 4 additional schools. We also are partnering with Dignity Health, Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, Glendale Adventist Medical Center Community Foundation. They're the ones that provide the free health education component. We're also working with them to weigh in the kids pre-session and post-session to see if the children are losing some weight or losing their fat and gaining more muscle. Any questions? So far, it's been a very positive program. We have our championship games on a Saturday. Right before the session ends. We have 200 to 300 parents that participate and come in and cheer on their children participating against other schools.
Great. Any comments, questions?
Joe.
Yeah, those were some impressive numbers on that parent survey. We were like, I think, mid-80s to 90% with the kids having a change in behaviors and eating fruits and vegetables and doing well in school. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I think that we definitely would like to see an expansion in this and be able to reach out to more kids than the 4 schools that we are currently proposing. I think that this should be something that we could look into, perhaps being a citywide program. I mean, because man,
that's our hope.
Sign me up because
we're taking baby steps.
Yeah.
All of the schools now south of the 134 will have this program, besides Jefferson, which is north of the 134. But it meets the income level, lower income level, and the kids that really need the after-school program. But we're hoping to expand north of the 134. We've had. I know there was one child at Edison where he dropped down 2 shirt sizes in his uniform. And then we have another child that was pre-diabetic, and she's off her medications because she lost over 20 pounds, part of the first session in flag football. So we're very excited with the expansion of the program.
Very impressive. Very nice. Thank you very much.
Okay. And then on the next item, I'd like to invite the commissioners and the public to our 23rd annual Glendale Cruise Night, which will be held July 16th. I know Iris had mentioned it, but I'd like to thank our major sponsors. Downtown Glendale Association is a naming sponsor and a presented by sponsor, the city's Economic Development Division. Both those large sponsorships came in, and we're very excited to host the 23rd annual cruise night. So hopefully you'll be attending and our viewers will be attending. Event starts at 5:30. We'll end at 10:30 with fireworks finale. And with that being said, I also, on behalf of the Recreation Community Services section, I'd like to thank Jess for his leadership and support that he has given us the last 6 years he's been with our department. I personally have learned a lot from Jess, and I congratulate you on your retirement. And hopefully you'll come back and participate in our programs with your grandchild. We have a lot of fun programs for kids. And once again, thank you again for your leadership and your support.
Thank you. How many cars are you anticipating for our cruise night this year?
Our hope is 350 to 400
How many do we have
vehicles.
confirmed so far?
So far, as of today, we have 167. We not sure if you've seen our Facebook ad. We went ahead and posted a event ad, and so far, as of this morning, we have 15,000 hits. So hopefully that will increase our car registrations.
When's the deadline?
Deadline the day before the event. I mean, as late as July 15th.
Okay.
We'll take some registration during the event, but we try to have everyone pre-register so we can print out the roster and make sure everyone's entering the correct entry points.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is 6G2, Park Services.
Good afternoon, President Wu, members of Commission. The written report in front of you covers the last 2 months of Park Services, the activity reports, of which in April we had 210 work orders completed for 685 labor hours, and in May it was 242 work orders, roughly about 663 labor hours. We've had a number of projects that we completed during the last several months we have been able to present to you. Today we're going to cover only a handful of them that we felt would be great to discuss. First is the Palmer Community Garden. As you know, the Palmer Park currently is under construction and it is closed to the public. Palmer Park Community Garden is located in the rectangular yellow area. It has been several years. This has been open to the public. They get a small plot to be able to plant their vegetables and they garden. And this is good for the community to come and spend some time, keep themselves active. And the folks who do not have green space, this is their way of getting some vegetables for their house. The conditions, though, were quite unpleasing. The weeds had grown out, and all of the plots, as you notice, people bring in materials from their home to be able to secure their fences, anywhere from bed frames to window screens to anything you could potentially imagine. There was here in the plots for people to reserve and secure. And it became a nuisance after the vegetation grew with no one caring for them. We had complaints from the residents for rats being in the area. And we figured it's time for us to go clean it all out. We took the approach in going in more pictures of different areas of the overgrown weeds and the vegetation. We took staff in and started clearing the entire lot. The goal is, you see it entirely clean. The goal would be that every individual that had a plot will get a plot again. And we're going to draw out the plots to be similar sizes, change the formatting so that they don't have the fences around anymore, more open lots areas. We're looking at considering the vines and trees, not allowing them because they actually start growing out of hand, keeping more to vegetables and make it a vegetable garden. We will be inviting all of the current plot owners to a meeting to discuss the two different options, whether it will be raised or just literally underground. As you see, the spigots for all the water that we provide for them are still there. This is a cabana area that they actually sit and gather and plan their next vegetable gardens. But the entire lot is clear. There's some debris that we still have to clear out. We're looking at scheduling the meeting with the plant owners in the next month or so and get feedback as to which direction we should go. We also believe that by providing them similar sized plots, reasonable sized plots, we'll be able to get to some of the folks who've been on a waiting list for quite a while and be able to get them in here as well. You'll probably hear about Palmer Park in the coming months as we have more to update you on. Maple Park, if you recall, these were the play mounds for kids to play as the park was reconstructed or remodeled several months, 2 years ago actually. What we noticed is those mounds were being used for anything other than their intended use. There are people, as you can see, running around the different mounds, using it as a bike trail, which led to a lot of the deterioration. We were unable to grow grass on it. The sprinklers would break, and you notice the holes that it would create, and it became more of a liability than a play item. So in conversing with Mr. Duran, we came up with the idea of removing the mounds, making that play area more open, and started planting for the time being, because in the coming months, as you may note, part of the DIF, this area is going to be incorporated to the overall all ADA inclusive playground. So we've already taken the first steps, taken the liability issues out, taken the mounds out, planted the area, and in the coming months, we'll start planning for the future ADA all inclusive playground for that location. We had the North Verdugo Woodlands Homeowner Association folks approach us to do something at the entrance to the trails, North Verdugo entrance. This is off of Kalina. If you note, the park boundary would be, I don't know if I can, it won't show, but the park boundary is right where the tree line is between the triangle, the rectangular yellow the spot right over there. And typically we just maintain up into that area. If you also recall, last year we lost a lot of redwood trees from the same area, and that we had to remove. And the homeowner association came to us with a proposal, let's go ahead and replant and reforest this area and make that entrance, because it is used by a lot of people as a trail, hiking and running, jogging. They wanted to improve the condition of the trail. So we agreed in collaboration with them, planned on having them come in and do some work, cleanup work in the stream over there. I think it was one Saturday morning in February they came in and did that. Then we followed through with our staff, did a lot of stump grinding because of the trees that were removed, and the stumps were still remaining. So we did all the stump grinding, we cleared all the vegetation and shrubbery from the stream. We came back, cleared the upper entrance to the trail, and after it was all cleaned out, started planting trees. We planted 11 trees, 3 bay laurels, 2 oaks, and 6 eastern redbud trees that we planted in this area. The problem is we didn't have any irrigation at this location, so staff had to pull a brand new irrigation line to be able to make sure once we planted the trees, and given that we don't get any rain, those trees, as young as they are, they will not survive without the water. So staff spent about a week trenching, pulling new irrigation lines, installing new valves, installing new bubblers per tree. So the trees that are planted now, each will have their own bubbler to sustain itself. We have it on the program, and after everything was said and done, we came in and mulched the areas. This is all cleared up, and then the entrance to the far right mulched. And this is what the entrance looks like now. In the next couple of years, we look forward to those trees growing and making that entrance looking as beautiful as actually probably than it has ever been. Cerritos Park, we did a couple of projects at Cerritos Park. One of them was the entrance off of Brand Avenue. As part of our normal project, we added mulch to the planter area to control the weeds and help the moisture. We also had a leak to the water play feature. Water play feature, as you know, comes online June 15th and annually, and there was a leak under the concrete. We couldn't identify it. The only way to do it is be able to tear apart the concrete, identify the leak, fix it, and have it all working, patch ready to go for June 15th. Pleased to say, whether it's by pure luck or skill, our guys were able to identify the leak in the first day we started cutting through the concrete, and were able to patch it the following day. And this is one of the bubblers that sprays water up for the kids to run and play in. And after they patched the leak, we're able to pour concrete again, and it's been, I can guarantee you, this past weekend it got a lot of use at this location. This is the finished product from far out. Within about another week, that concrete will change its color to be as if we've never been there before. Pacific Park, this is the Riverside entrance. It's along the path of the playground. A lot of the vegetation had died. We had nothing but mulch. We figured we'll just add a little vegetation to green up that entrance. So staff, as we typically do, laid out all the plants, planted them, and now here's a final product of what this area would look like. Elk Mini, both walls along the side, vegetation had died, so we cleared it all out, and staff, yet again, identified appropriate plants to plant in this area. And after they were said and done, we ended up having a more beautiful looking landscape in the corners. And lastly, we did a similar project over at Adams Square. Along the wall, as you can see, the weeds were growing out because we had to remove a couple of trees from this area because they had died over the years. And in replanting, we decided to plant the vines in this area so you can actually cover the wall and be able to control it that way. Here's what it would look like close up. And ultimately, we intend to have this area closed with the vines, and staff will keep it under control on the wall and in the planter bed. That concludes the presentation. If there are any questions from Commission, I'd be happy to address them.
Any questions, Commissioners? All right. Seems like you had your hands full there. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, I hate to be the only section that didn't appreciate Mr. Duran's, although I try to keep my talking to a minimum. Mr. Duran has been a great resource for our section, has been supporting us through all the challenges we faced, all the changes we've encountered. He's been a champion of park services, and we're very pleased to have had him as our leader. And he's been a mentor for me personally and growing within my career, within my as a leader in the organization, and helped me get to the position that I'm in with his guidance and support and leadership. So Park Services appreciates Jess Duran's efforts and leadership, and we wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 6G3, Trails and Open Space. There isn't a presentation for this item. Unless there's any questions, I'll move on to the next item.
Next item, please.
6G4, Administration CIP.
Yes, President Wu, Commissioners, we do have a PowerPoint. I will try to go through this quickly. The Brand Park Wayfinding sign project has been completed, so Brand Park is littered with brand new signage. That was a cost of $150,000. In July, next month, we will be starting the Brand Park lighting project. As you can see, we will be removing 58 of the existing light poles, and they will be replaced with 106 new energy-efficient light poles throughout the park. And this is a map of where they will be located, so they will be all over the park. We will be doubling the number of light standards. The Dugmagian Barn Nature Educational Center mechanical improvements. The scope is the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, some rough plumbing, some rough electrical work, but including some shop lighting, a new concrete floor. Right now the floor is dirt, a new glass storefront entry door, and accessibility improvements. This should start up next month as well and be completed by November or December. The estimated cost is $700,000 with a $105,000 contingency, which would total $805,000. And this is what the park looks like. You can see the barn there on the left. And this is what it currently looks like inside. So it's just a shell. After the mechanical systems, we do have in the budget currently approved by City Council an appropriation of $2.044 million, which would go towards the interior design and build out of the barn to be able to convert it and open it up as the nature educational center that it was intended. So this would include the interior improvements, fixtures, furniture, equipment, building out walls, some finished interior lighting, a lot of electrical receptacles, and some additional plumbing, and including the construction of a restroom building, which is required by the building department. The next step for this project is to issue a request for proposal to hire the design consultant. It has to have a specialty in educational or museum type of interior design work. And so we will be submitting a report to the Commission to review and approve that request for proposal for the design consultant and for this description, the detailed description of the scope of work. And then, subject to your approval, we will submit that same report to the City Council for their review and approval. And if the City Council desires to review the budget again at that time. And you should have that before you, I would say, within 2 to 3 months. Then these are more diagrams of what the interior improvements might look like in the circulation for the Nature Educational Center, which would also be able to convert to reception type use, where the display walls would be portable, where they would either rise to the ceiling or they could be pushed back against the walls to open it up for assembly and reception use on the weekends and for rentals. And this is what it would look like with assembly seating. We're in the middle of the Palmer Park renovation project. It started in February, should be complete by October. It's close to a $3 million project. It's currently 25% complete. And then this is the plan for that. Riverwalk Phase 2, we hope to start within the next couple of months and to be completed by January or early part of next year. It's a $2.1 million project. Unfortunately, we still don't have final approval from the LA County Flood Control District, so we're still waiting for that to be able to break ground. And these are graphics of the Riverwalk and design sketches. Fremont Park renovation. We are in the process of receiving a design development proposal from the architect. We hope to be able to start construction a little over a year from now. It'll take that long to prepare the designs and the plans and specs. Then it'll be a 1-year construction. The estimated cost on this slide says $10 million, but we met last week and we're thinking it's going to be a little bit more than $10 million. So we are working on a phasing plan to divide the project in at least 2 phases. The first phase we're planning on will be about a $6 million phase, and that will get us the artificial turf soccer field, a temporary modified drive path for the police department, and probably the relocation of the playground as part of phase 1, while we continue to work towards a funding strategy for the actual full cost of the project to complete all phases. And then this is the master plan for that project. Civic Auditorium exterior improvements. We hope to begin construction next month and to be completed by November. It's going to cost $335,000. This project has been approved by the City Council. We're just waiting for some color scheme alternatives to show to the City Council one more time before we begin the painting project for the Civic Auditorium. This also includes 26 existing exterior light fixtures and awnings on the south entrance of the auditorium. So this will really dress up the exterior of the auditorium. This is an example of what the color scheme was going to be, but per direction from the City Council, we're going to soften up the contrast. In the Wilson Mini Park restroom building I alluded to earlier, we do plan to submit a contract proposal to the City Council next month and begin construction on that. That's a $265,000 project. And here's the graphic for that. So the restaurant building is that square on the top of the park. It'll be a 20 by 20 building, which is the size of a standard garage, 400 square foot garage. And then more diagrams.
Restrooms, right?
Yes. Men's and women's restroom. Maple Park, Maryland Park, shade structure. We're installing 4 shade structures at Maple and 2 at Maryland. We should have, we received council approval for a design build proposal. Based on that, we should be able to receive approval of the final proposal and start construction sometime in September and be completed by February. And these are the locations of the shade structures. At Maples, there'll be 4. And at Palmer, at Maryland, there'll be 2 over the existing playgrounds. We're also working on a Verdugo Park North master plan. We're issuing a request for proposal for design services. Right now, that's a $2.8 million project. And that will include a new community building with a new restaurant building probably attached to it, a new all-inclusive Shane's Inspiration playground, and is there a tool shed as well, or a mechanical room, or no?
There'll be a storage room for
Storage
the
room.
restrooms.
Okay.
Staff.
So that's many planned for Verdugo Park North. Central Park Master Plan. We are having meetings now with the different departments, with economic development, with Public Works, and with Library, Arts, and Culture and City Manager's Office to begin coordinating the master planning for Central Park, which will now be coordinated and compatible with the Armenian Museum project. So we will have more of a meandering park design between the library and the new proposed museum site. Right now, what we have budgeted for that design work is $2.3 million. And so depending on the final master plan or conceptual plan, we may be going back to City Council to request additional funding. We'll know more in about 6 months. Then we've begun discussions with the Shane's Inspiration organization on the design of an all-inclusive playground at Maple Park. Right now, the budget for that is $825,000. That's been approved by the City Council. We currently have a license and what's called license agreement.
Yes, license agreement, and it's up at the City Attorney's Office.
A license and grant agreement, City Attorney's Office for review in order to form the partnership with the Shane's Inspiration organization on a design of that project. And then what you see outlined in red will be the location of the new Shane's Inspiration playground. So it'll be about twice the size of the existing playground. Glendale High School tennis courts is actually being managed by the Glendale Unified School District. They're having some issues with it's being merged and combined with their aquatic center development project, and so it's a little delayed due to some consultant issues that they've had, but it should be coming online by the end of this year, I would say. And that's a graphic of that. The tennis courts on the left-hand side and the aquatic center. Sports complex, betting cage, and concession building. Staff's, again, is in the process of issuing or drafting an RFP for a contract operator for the batting cages, concurrent with developing plans and specs for the construction. So we want to get an operator before we complete the construction of the batting cage, a facility to make sure we have someone that is willing to operate the batting cages before we go through the trouble of building it. And that's currently being reviewed by the City Attorney's Office. And that will be the location of the batting cages at the sports complex. Upper Shoal Canyon Ballfield Concession Restroom Building renovation. This entails a new concession building with restrooms, a storage space, and an outdoor seating area. Accessibility upgrades, estimated cost $650,000. And we are processing a professional services agreement with AC6 Architects to design that project. And Glorietta Park Lighting and Irrigation, the title of the project speaks for itself. We plan to issue a request for proposal for an architect to design and develop the plans and specs in September, and to be able to complete this project by summer of 2017. And that concludes the report on capital improvement programs. And before we conclude, I also want to mention that we have a very strong leadership team in the Community Services and Parks Department between Coco and Oneg and Teresa and Moises and Yvette and Judith, who made the presentation on workforce. These are all professional administrators that I had the good fortune and privilege to bring up myself personally and to appoint them in their current positions. That doesn't mean that they agree with me on everything all the time, but it's because I entrust that they can do the best job possible for this community and carry on all the good work that we started together. So I want you to be assured that the team is in place and the cupboard is very full, which gives me a lot of solace in leaving. And as you may or may not know, the city manager has appointed Mr. Bulanikian to act as the acting or interim director of the department. So there should be a relatively smooth transition. And so I want to thank our leadership team, all the men and women that I just mentioned, for their commitment and loyalty, as it were, and for their fine work. It's a fine group, and I'm very proud of them and thankful to have them. Thank you.
Thank you. I echo that sentiment. I think that we're in good hands. I think that I look around and we have great leaders that has just said that he had the privilege of putting together this dream team. So I look forward to continued great work to be done. And I think that Jess should be looking back and be very proud. And I would just like to just say that, I think a lot of the people have voiced their sentiment and all the tribulations they have wanted to say to Jess, and I think it's very well deserving. And I think that you're going to be sorely missed. But feel free to come and attend any of our meetings. The door is always open for you, Jess. And, always know that you have a friend in all of us. And I just can't thank you enough for all your hard work. I believe Commissioner Grant has...
Well, I'd like to echo those words, but I do have a touch of business. In regards to the RFPs, specifically to Duke Magian, I did want to confirm that the commission would have the opportunity to comment and address those before they go to the City Council.
President Wu, Commissioner Michaels, yes. Once we've completed the draft of the request for proposal, we will make that report to the commission, ask for your review and approval, and that will be followed by submitting the report to the City Council for their final review and approval, the RFP.
Thank you.
And that will include the budget breakdown and all the funding sources. And that's important because upon approval of that RFP, we are committing to begin to obligate the funds that the City Council currently has appropriated for the projects. So that's an important step.
And I just did want to remember the commission did discuss the Civic Auditorium and the colors. I think everyone here would like to see the color choices, and we all sort of had tentative approval but wanted to see the swatches. So colors are something that I do want to see and take a look at as well.
We can do that. Okay.
All right. Does that do for the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. So then that concludes our meeting for our June 20th and officially closes our Just Duran Day of 2016. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.